these
Hello everyone, this is Sourav Mishra from NASSCOM SME team. I'm glad to be here along with this panelist on this important topic of diversity and inclusion. Before we start, let's take a pause for a minute so that all the attendees could join in. Then we can get started with the session. So please stay tuned. Thank you. Sure. Okay, here we go. Good afternoon again, and a very warm welcome to the fourth edition of NASSCOM SME CentreStage series session. This program aims to bring on stage successful entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs of from the SME community, which highlights their success, the great work they have done in a particular area, and share their success recipes with the fellow community. This provides an exclusive opportunity for the SME members to interact and learn from the champions of the industry on business planning and growth. Today's topic is on diversity and inclusion. A strong diversity and inclusion strategy can help an organization to attract top talent and drive innovative results. And it can have a multiplier effect in case the organization belongs to a small and medium category. So without delaying further, let me introduce the host of the session, Anuradha Biswas. Anuradha is the founder and CEO of Prakat Solutions, a company she founded in 2009. Prakat specialty includes in product engineering space, test engineering, and application development and modernizations. Within the organizations, Anu's focus has been building an inclusive technology-driven solutions plus cultivating workforce diversity. She is also an esteemed member of NASSCOM SME Council representing Karnataka region. It is indeed a pleasure to have you with us, Anu, today. So let's welcome Anu to take the session forward. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Sourav, for all your good words. I just want to share a couple of things. Thanks for mentioning the part around inclusion. All of us have worked in corporates or started our journey partly as entrepreneurs, and some of us worked in corporates and then became entrepreneurs. Whatever it is, social vision and something which matters to our soul was very important for my journey. And I think the trigger for me came from a person who couldn't see in one of the corporates I worked in, Infosys. And I owe my, not my entrepreneurial journey, but my journey towards social inclusion, I owe it to Srirang, who was in Infosys at that time, and an aunt of mine who worked relentlessly to create job opportunities for people with disabilities. So these two were my inspiration when I started, and we made it our mission that as small enterprises, it's not easy to keep the business running, but still our team had the passion that we will not let go of our social vision at any cost. And when we talk about inclusion, we mean it's about having people work as part of our environment, that's way of life for us, but also be sensitive at every opportunity. Even if you create a small presentation, any small solution, software, we make sure it is accessible. The smallest of things matter, because when we begin, we don't have large teams. The smallest of things matter to us. And that set a pace for our company over the last 12 years. And I can say that most people who've been with us for over 3-4 years, it's become a way of life. And each one of us make it our responsibility to inculcate that in people joining us. And the other thing that we did was to try our best to build, evangelize this with large corporates who worked with us as customers, build awareness within their teams, and make sure that they hire these people. We trained over 2,000 people in the last 8-10 years with this vision, irrespective of whether we hired them or not, but a large part of them are part of the corporate world now. So this is my journey, but today the focus is on two hero companies, their founders and the team members. And I really have the pleasure to introduce them, and very, very curious to learn their drivers and their journey. I'll go with alphabetic order. Abhishek Rathi, founder of Vcreatek. He's in the, Abhishek, could you just show your hand, please? Yeah. Of course, he's a passionate entrepreneur, innovator in the data analytics solution. He'll talk about all that. But most important, what drew me to his profile was the fact that he thinks so much beyond his own business. And then he does so many things. Here we are today to talk about inclusion. We're going to talk about that. Apart from that, he's a mentor for class 9 and 10 students. Am I right, Abhishek? As part of Atal Tinkering Lab. These are the things that really matter to me, because I can see your purpose that you want to catch them young and shape them. So those are some key things that matter to me, and he believes that his team is his most important weapon. Moving on to Gaurav, he's founder of Rise, an e-learning services, and what best way to express inclusion than learning? Gaurav, you've been in this field, you understand what I'm saying. So some credentials of Gaurav before I jump into that. He's a computer engineer graduate from the University of Mumbai, MBA from INSEAD, and then he's worked in healthcare education space. But the point is, coming back to our core purpose, inclusion and diversity. It starts with education. Now, for example, we conduct events called Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and it is still a struggle for inclusion. When we conduct seminars, for example, now, if we do not record this, many people who are not sighted may miss out because we don't have the, they can hear. I'm talking about people with who can't hear, they are left out. So there are so many such problems in everyday life. And when you're building an e-learning service, it's so important to make sure every member is taken care of. And I'm sure, Gaurav, we're going to hear a lot about all that today. Welcome to both of you, and over to you both to say a few words about yourselves, because obviously you've put in years of experience and I may not have brought in everything effectively. Please go ahead. Abhishek.
Thanks, Anu. Good afternoon, everybody. I think we are a little lucky and fortunate enough, Gaurav, myself, Anu, right, that we have an opportunity to build an organization, and at the same time we are working towards that purpose, right, with inclusion. And organization definitely can check on websites and etc. Right. I think the main purpose of today from my side would be I will share our story, why inclusion is important and what's the reason behind our journey and how we want to continue on this journey. We'll be very happy to share our experience with all of you and request all of you to share whatever apprehension or questions you have, small or big, please do share in the chat so that we can address and have an open discussion. That's all from my side. Thanks.
Thanks. Gaurav?
I am Gaurav, and good afternoon, everyone, for joining this. Exactly in the lines Abhishek mentioned, there's a reason behind the story. Is not, in my case, I've been on this journey now for the past few years, even before I set up Rise in my previous venture. I had championed a similar cause, and we've taken it a step forward at Rise. So I'll be happy to share with you my drivers and what's worked for us so far and what our plans are to take this further at the organization as we move in. Thank you.
Perfect, Gaurav, you stay on. I'll start with you and move to Abhishek. The most curious question, right? The way, especially if you have been raised in middle class, upper middle class environments, you're so focused on our own journey. What was your driver? What was that trigger or starting point which made you think about this seriously?
Well, the trigger didn't start at the workplace, to be honest. It actually started off when I was much younger. I have a cousin of mine who has Down syndrome. He's close to 40 years now. But and I saw my uncle and my aunt struggle while he was growing up because the options for his education, the options to provide him equity in society was very limited. And I saw that struggle, and it was quite painful. It is still very painful because as a society, we claim to have a lot of acceptance, but in reality, we don't. Right? It's a very different story in the real world. So I think somewhere down the line, when you grow up in a family where you have, let's say, in this case, with a cousin, it's more like a brother. So when you have someone with Down syndrome who deserves all the love and affection and all the care and all the good things in the world, and when you see that life is a little bit of a struggle, it kind of rubs onto you, and you see, okay, what could have been different or what could be better. Our schools, for example, right, we start off are different for different abilities. But if, for example, right from schooling, if we had systems which allowed inclusion, our understanding of things would have been very different. That was my first learning. And that somewhere took me, I brought that to my workplace when I was in a position of authority to bring in change. So, when you're not in a position of authority, you can't, sometimes you want to do things, but you can't. But when you were given an opportunity, I think that's when I first started working on some of these things. And it's been a learning journey for us as well to figure out what we need to do and to bring out change. So I think it's very personal for me. This entire thing is starts from a very personal note.
Perfect. I feel guilty now. I forgot to mention one of my personal experiences. A cousin again, who had learning disability. She was dyslexic, and we are a huge family, and we were also supportive of her, though she's older than me. And yes, the biggest trauma was that she couldn't be sent to school, or the alternate schools were the ones which would accept them, but it's so unfortunate. But thankfully, the family environment helps for such people. Thanks for that, Gaurav. Abhishek, over to you, if you have anything else to add.
On my side, I think I was a volunteer at Spastic Society of Eastern India when I was in class 12 and in my first year. Apparently, I used to go one day a week, and during that one day, the school was, it is now known as Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy. They teach all the kids and they do vocational training. Apparently, during those volunteer days, it became that there are people, challenging physically as well as on the cerebral side, right? There were people, but they were always motivated. And from there onward, like when you come out, it was a very inspiring thing for me that I used to get my energy. And somehow that has stick around with me till date. So for all my selfish reasons, right, I am part of these activities, and I like to meet people because they understand the need of the resources around us. Somewhere we, the able people, I think we end up, because of our competition and goals, right, we end up more on the cribbing side and finding complaints. So that has been my selfish reason, and it has stick with me that I want to work with these people who are always full of energy, committed, and want to do things. And that's the reason that for me, working with any kind of challenges is not a reason to do charity, or it's more of that I get energy and inspired, and they bring a lot of positivity, attitude, what we are always looking for to build a good team. So that has been the primary reason, Anu, for me to take this as an action. As Gaurav told, now we are in so-called, right, in a position where we can drive small change. We want to do that way, one person at a time.
Absolutely. So lovely. It has to start with that inspiration. For me, as a youngster, I saw my husband's aunt, who I mentioned, working so relentlessly and so patiently initially, I'll be honest, even I thought I was doing a favor, by writing checks. But then when you work with them, you realize you have that opening in your head that we learn more from them. They have more to offer to us than the other way around.
I tell you, Anu, I mean, just to add, I still remember my days. There's a person called Deepak Ghosh, Sudham Paul. I can recall their names, right? They're still friend of mine on Facebook and others. We were playing cricket during the break time. And one of the ball hit one of the kid. He didn't cry. He said, okay, give me the bat and I will work again, right? So that's these are the moments which have been changing in me, has been very game changer for me in my life. And apparently more than them or anybody gaining, I think I have built in a lot of confidence in myself to move forward.
Absolutely. Leenika, we missed you initially. Welcome back. Welcome. And hopefully we'll hear some good thoughts from you, because thanks to you, we are all here today, Leenika.
No, apologies for the delay. Actually, I was in Wipro's office, could not get the internet connectivity. Sincere apologies.
No problem. We'll hear from you for sure. You have brought us together.
Thank you.
All right. So now we all are inspired. We begin. So how curious questions to both of you, whoever wants to jump in. How did you start taking those baby steps? What did you, some of you, for instance, I built it as part of my initial storyline, right? And I want to make sure at least one person is there to keep us honest. Are the steps fine? Do we have people who understand how this works? Many such things. What did you both do? Should I address one of you, or do you want to jump in like me?
So I will take a shot at this one, and next Gaurav can go first, right?
Sure.
I think, so I've been running this organization for 7 years, and since the childhood, I told you, right, I've been involved with a lot of social activities in terms of for my own inspiration. That's my selfish motto. Let's be very clear. But while building the organization, we were always a product-based company. You need a lean team, a small team. We were doing good. I mean, we built a team, but we were still not moving forward in terms of success of the organization. So last 4 years back, we pivoted from product to services. Now in services, you need a bigger team technically, right? So then one of our talent, and we do hiring only by references. So one of my colleagues told, there's this guy called Govind. He's 4th year computer science graduate and from PICT, which is a premium college in Pune, but he's not getting placed. Why? He is he has a hearing and speech impairment. Somehow and that time we were working on an application support project. Somehow it just clicked me. I mean, if he's a computer science graduate from a premium institute, I mean, he can still add value technically, right? There's no reason. I just need to find the right work for him. So we took that step ahead. I connected with him, and I first thought that me being, again, if this is my idea, let me work with him, because I have to be, as we are discussing this topic, right, about inclusion. I believe that we have the able people among us have to be more trained to work with all the people. We are, right? So with that idea, I connected with Govind. We exchanged emails because he can communicate, right? Technology brings a lot of good communication opportunities with us. He was, and I can very proudly tell you, being a computer engineer, just like anybody else, he was replying to my SQL queries, Python queries, and everything. And that helped me to build in the confidence. I spent another 1 month with him. And then we figured it out, can he do the project? We did, again, a very fair discussion that the project work is of this type, right? He has to also, because that's what we ask other people also, right? Whether we will work on Python or not. So we did all those things properly, just like any other able person. And he's now a part of the team. And that has been the trigger now. So that success, then another, today we are in the forum, and that is the whole idea of me coming and talking also, that it is doable. So when one of my another employee came to know about it, that because of COVID, nobody's seeing anybody. So then your physical challenges were not so obvious. So people knows Govind can reply and do the work. So that's a one positive thing.
Brilliant.
What happened? On the contrary, now nobody knows that people like Govind, who are able, can do all the work, have some physical challenge. So then during one of the meeting last year, one of my senior employee came to know, okay, we do it. So I know a college which does technical training for vision impairment. Would you like to look? So there we went, and then again we did an interview, and we found one good candidate in Namrata. So that's how has been the trigger, Anuradha, for us.
You can call me Anu.
Yeah, Anu.
So lovely. So Gaurav, I know you work more with neurodiversity, right? So I want to spend a minute here. So like Abhishek, we've been more focused on people with visual impairment for a simple reason. When we started, the world was moving more towards online solutions, apps. So we realized the people with visual impairment were the most affected in terms of just using an app. For the longest time, the Swiggies and Olas of the world were not accessible, and even now it is not very accessible. But they're making huge steps towards that. So for me, the drivers were more that, right? But if you're in education space, we are talking so much now. We are uh, cutting out hearing impairment, but you went for neurodiversity, and we did a small little. We are making small little experiments with autism. It's a journey in progress, but we've not been really up to the mark there. So I'd love to hear from you or anything else you have to share.
Sure. So I'll start with my journey. When you were building Rise, as I told you, even prior to that, my last organization, I worked on a similar initiative, but that the only mistake I would say I did there was I got in people not from the neurodiverse side that time. We were looking at LGBTQ inclusion there.
Yeah.
So we brought in team members, but we did not do a sensitization with the other colleagues.
Correct.
And that I think was my first learning when I moved in, when I was building Rise, that if I would do something similar this time, we will start off first with training on and training on both sides, just to ensure that it becomes the workplace, for example, becomes equitable, and the place becomes friendly for everybody working in the organization. I think that was the starting point when we started off with Rise. With Rise, the first step was to build inclusion. And when we talk about DEI, we thought, okay, let's look at diversity and inclusion from all the standpoints. So we started off with leadership. We said in the leadership, we are going to ensure, and this was not by design, it happened subsequently, that we said let the best person, whether it be male or female, lead the team. So it happened naturally that we ended up having more than 65-70% of our team as women, and there was no choice. It was just like, let's get the most competent person for the job. We didn't have a choice whether that competent person could be a male or a female. That wasn't really the thing, but we said that we will not be biased in our decision making, and from an HR standpoint, we will ensure that we are not asking, or we are training people on asking the right questions, that just for competence and not for anything else. So I think that was the first step. And I think as that kept happening, slowly and steadily, we realized that almost 60% of my leadership team also ended up being women, right? To the point that there was a recent joke with one of the women, we were sitting in a on a discussion over coffee. One of them casually joked that, Gaurav, we're getting to 100%. So I'm like, okay, that means we have to move out at some point in time. But, it was more of a, they're like, you can keep championing the cause. I'm like, yeah, we'll champion all causes that are the right causes to champion. I think that's where we laughed about it. But then I think that first step was, let's start off with the low hanging fruit. So we started off with that was easier because it did not require too much of training beyond that purpose, right? Beyond that point, with believing that is the right thing to do. And then the next thing we started off, and this was actually very coincidental. There's an organization in Bangalore called Orquate.
Right.
And Orquate is into neurodiversity training. And I happened to know one of the founders there from one of my earlier stints, called Panchali. So I was looking at one of her LinkedIn posts, and then she was on a LinkedIn meeting where she was talking about the work that she currently does. And I wasn't aware that she's moved into this space. So I reached out to her. I said, you're doing some great work. And we connected. There was no, at that point in time, I was just curious to see what it takes for us to make that jump. And her suggestion to me was, Gaurav, let's take one step at a time. Let's start off with training this time around. And let's start off with internships. And you see how it works for you. And that will give you time, and it will give the interns some time to acclimatize. And if you feel this is working, you can look at extending full-time offers. So that's essentially how our journey started. So we this time round we started differently. We first started off by training our teams. So we onboarded them as trainers. We got them to train our team members. Then we brought in interns, and subsequently to that we also moved, and I'll share more details later, but we also have full-time employees out of those interns, and now we're looking at a second cohort to come in. So that's where we are in our journey. And from my perspective, it's been the most beautiful thing for the organization, for my leadership, and for my colleagues alike. because the key thing today in for any organization, right? And you can see there's a lot of data that's coming out on LinkedIn where you have attrition, they call it the great resignation period, so on and so forth, right? But everyone's believing that, people are leaving their organization, changing jobs regularly. And you want to have, and it takes time for you to train talent. It takes time for you to hire talent. There is a cost associated with it. There's time associated with it. And the lesser, I mean, there's also data on this, but if the organizations aren't empathetic, while in the short run, they keep meeting the goals, in the long run, they have other challenges that come up. And I wasn't playing the short run game. I mean, we were very, very clear that we are in it for the long haul. We are going to do the right things by our people, by the company at large. And that, for me, one of the key steps to doing that was being empathetic and building a culture of empathy across, right? And this worked in beautifully, because if I'm working with colleagues where where empathy is part of the initial training and structure, then by and large, it reinforces across layers. And I think that's where we started off with this journey. So if there was one motive that I had for the organization, was building an empathetic organization. And this works very well from that standpoint. An equitable organization, an empathetic organization. And then neurodiversity is where we started off with that journey. And this year, for example, we're also looking at looking at people with disabilities in the next phase as we kind of move along. So we'll be taking it one step at a time and learning from our journey and then scaling up on it.
Lovely. So maybe Abhishek, there's a lot of cross learning here. Abhishek and I have started with people with visual impairment, and definitely you've started with this. Maybe we could. Ironically, I was just thinking when you talked about starting with women, being a woman entrepreneur, and Leenika also, I'm sure would agree, I never looked at myself as diversity. I was always part of the workforce. I've never looked at my colleagues and friends as man or woman. So it's interesting. But yeah, I can understand it from your point of view. But yes, it's a wonderful thing that you said that there are a lot of women in your leadership. Just for the audience here, today we decided to move away from the cliched woman to man ratio as part of our diversity conference, because we all believe, all the participants here, Leenika, Gaurav, Abhishek, and me believe that we've made lots of progress in making sure there's enough inclusion for women. And hence we are talking more about other aspects of inclusion. And I hope that's okay with you all. But if any of you still have any questions, please post that. We'll be happy to cover. But Gaurav, lovely. At leadership levels, you have a lot of women, which was rare in my times. But the plus side to it was I was one of the most pampered people. Thanks to more men. But lovely to hear your journey on how you took the baby steps. Now the big question. We've all taken baby steps. Two parts to this question, right? One is, how are you going to be consistent? Every time new people are hired, in general, a mix of people, things get eroded, right? For example, even if you just simply look at inclusion from the point of view of softwares being accessible to all communities, the initial intent and vision would have been good. But as things progress, as people, stakeholders change, it gets diluted. It applies to software, it applies to how we work with people, right? How do we institutionalize, sustain, and don't let the ball drop, or if things do get dropped, how do we recover? These are some questions I have for both of you. And maybe Abhishek, you can start. Abhishek, would you like?
Yeah. Anu, I think that's the beauty on this initiative also, right? Gaurav, myself, and we all have defined that it is normal thing and it's a part of thing and it is our purpose, right? Because it is benefiting us in whatever metrics we look into. So I think it is in our common, it is in our interest that we make it a regular process to scale it up. On our side, what we are doing it, as I said, we started with Govind, then with Namita. We are having a small team to begin with, and we are assigning a mentor, sort of. In both the cases, luckily, I was the mentor, so it was easier to get through that journey to begin with. But both of them are now independently working in both the teams. What we have done is, the way we hire the so-called able, like anybody, right? Hiring again has to be normal, right? Now they are referring us the friends and families from their circle. For whatever reason, again, they have the people known to them. So I can probably tell you that Namrata has referred Mohit, who would be joining us in month of September, who is 100% visually challenged, but he's equally good in Python, just like any one of us in my team.
Exactly.
Right? So that is now helping me to, rather than it's coming down from Abhishek, in a certain way, Mohit has already was interviewed just like any other person. And he has been again assigned a mentor who is working on a project. And then we will see that within 1 or 2, 3 months, he gets used to the team also get used to again communication with him, and we get through it. In case of Mohit, it has been lucky that again, since he is visually challenged and Namrata being also visually challenged, we have those learnings with us that now we know that they can communicate with the voice to text kind of things and a text to voice, other whatever way you look at it, right? They can hear all our emails and etc. depending, right? So we are very confident that inclusion of Mohit and working with us, it would be seamless. So I think that will continue from our perspective. As we do that, Govind, in part of the we are currently again working with a school who are on the speech impairment and hearing impairment, deaf and dumb, right? 2 of them visited our office last week. So we found that again, there's a learning for us. How do I communicate, right? So we had to give him a laptop, then get both of us on the WhatsApp and then chat, right? So these learnings would be there. And we have challenged ourselves that every 6 months we would be getting one person with these kind of inspirations and attitude, which will add a lot of positivity to the team. So that, I think that kind of hard goal will most probably help us to, keep that momentum going. And I'm supported by my leader in this goal of ours. I think if we can set up this realistic goal that we hire one person at least in 6 months or 12 months, depending on whatever the bandwidth and the team and the roles we need to look into it, I think it will improve.
Perfect. For us, what we did, we took a goal as part of our ISO and CMM initiatives. We said X percentage of people we hire has to be from a diverse background. And when I say diversity, I don't include women. It's probably pride in me as a woman. Okay. Okay. So my personal belief is women in today's world have all the right platform and opportunities. They don't need separate whatever. Yes, of course, later during the journey, when they get married, when during childbirth, there is support needed and many other interventions like that. Yes, but otherwise, our focus has been on these areas. We take specific percentage goals to hire in terms of people with disabilities. So Gaurav, over to you. How has it been for you?
So, I think, as I told you, for my last organization of this one, the first learning that, how we're going to do it in the future and how has it been for us. I think the process was something that we wanted to define. Right. And for any process, you need a champion. Right. So, and you need that champion to be the custodian of the process. You want to define that process and you want to drive it, learn from it, build into the process, but then make it seamless as we keep going across. So from the last time to this time, what we did, the first time we did it, this time around, we started off with training. And we started with sensitization first. So sensitization for the internal teams, telling them that we are doing this, this is our purpose, this is why we're going about the change, this is what we want to achieve. So giving clarity to your leaders and the team at large on what we are doing. And, it's not about seeking buy-in as much, but it's also about ensuring that they are aware, because by and large, I believe that everybody is, if they know the cause, if they understand why we're doing it, they will step in. Right. Because it can't just be the champion alone. The champion also needs a team, for example, to help them or help her with in taking things further. Right. So we first thing that we did was we hired an agency to train us, because we believed that with our internal competence, we were lacking. So we thought maybe starting and having an agency on the side would be helpful from a training standpoint. So that's the first step. I think then the next step was to ensure that, we invite candidates for the internship positions that we're rolling out. Now, as we were, the difference out here would be that we would have to tweak the process to make it comfortable also for the other person. right?
Right.
Our traditional new mechanisms, for example, may not have suited, or the testing mechanisms may not have suited. So what changes do I need to bring in to ensure that the process, for example, is suitable for both parties, was the next step that we did. So we identified the process. For example, we reduced the rounds of interviews, for example. Like typically, we would have 4 or 5 interviews, but we said, okay, maybe that's not comfortable. Can we make the process a little more seamless, bring it down to 1 or 2 interviews, right? If in case family members need to be involved for comforting or ensuring the process is comfortable, can we ensure that that is taking place? So we worked on some of those aspects as we started working on that journey. The next thing that we did then was, given that we were looking at the teams to work in, we identified that across different teams we had champions, because the roles were not limited to one team alone. We identified different teams where we could bring in a neurodiverse talent, and in those teams we identified buddies. So we made small teams of 3 people, 3 to 4 people, but we had one buddy in there who would work with the interns and ensure that they are having the support, or they are getting the support that they require, and also essentially getting these people, getting both sides trained through the training partner that we have. Now, the reason that was happening is we believe that it is a two-way street. There could be challenges, even for example, with the neurotypicals in working and figuring out how to take things further. And some of that would mean that we would also need to ensure that the training is continued during the internship period. So we decided to have it as a 4-month period. The first month essentially was only for training, followed by a 3 months of internship, right? And then at the end of the internship, we wanted to see how many of these interns wanted a full-time offer with us. It could be a two-way street, for example, where some of them may have other opportunities that come their way, or may want to kind of pursue their academics or whatever be their choice in life. Some of them may be very willing to come up and work with us full-time, right? And I think that's how we went about that entire journey. So I think putting a process in place, I think, and defining it and making it watertight is essentially critical. And once you have that process in place, then it is easy for you to move from one cohort to the next cohort and ensure that that process is seamless, because the process is essentially training on both sides. The process in itself is about looking at what kind of neurodiverse talent are you bringing in, what kind of challenges a specific neurodiverse talent person may be having, and how do I make that interview process or their journey in coming into the organization seamless, thinking through that. And if you have the internal talent for it, that's ideal. But if you don't, then probably bringing in a training partner would be the right thing to do, because eventually you're doing it so that it is a success, and success requires you to ensure that you're making the processes as comfortable for both sides. I think that's how we went about it. And we started off with 11 interns. We at the end of our 4-month period, 1 month of training on both sides and 3 months of internship, we were able to get 5 full-time employees from there, as well as continue with a couple of interns. That's how the journey is today. And in the next cohort, we're looking at about 8 to 10 more people to join us.
Brilliant. And out of all this, what really matters is the buddy, I think. Learning happens in all this, but having a friend, a buddy, is the most important thing for psychological well-being, and I'm glad you thought about it. And just to give you an input, there is an organization, since you talked about engaging a training institute, there's an organization who's helping us hire people from the zone. What they're doing is to make it easy for the organizations, which may not be internally well prepared. This is for the people in the audience. I will send the details to Leenika. She can share it with the participants later. They have a shadow person for every, like, let's say there are 4 or 5 people we have chosen from their organization. They have a person sitting with us as part of their teams and helping us through the process to make it more seamless. So that I thought was very useful. So maybe those are the other methods we can all think of. Abhishek, over to you.
No, I think I would like to concur with Gaurav on 2 aspects. One, he said family inclusion, right? Certain point depending. Trust me, we have done that in case of Namrata also, and it has helped us because they are also sensitive. They have actually gone through the bigger challenges, right? In terms of understanding their need and acceptance overall in a society. And that has helped us to build the trust both the sides. So I definitely agree. In case of the institutes where we have been working, we do partner with the teachers to again make the process more easier. And that two-way training which Gaurav mentioned is the key actually. That's very much key because it has to be normal and both the sides have to be trained in terms of taking it slow, easy, step by step, and understand that it is a long journey and we are learning in that. So these two things are definitely what he told. We are also doing at our end, and that has actually making this longer goal much more easier.
Thank you. And a couple of more questions. I know we have about 2-3 minutes before we bring in our heroes. Challenges that you faced in the ecosystem. For us, it was tough to convince certain customers, was my challenge. And it's still work in progress. What was your journey, any of you? And how did you leverage technology in all this? That's the other question I had, but we don't have enough time. But any of these, whichever one you want to answer.
So I'll take this one up. I think the initial challenge, of course, is to tell people that there is a that this makes economic sense, because investors are often ask you difficult questions, but luckily for us that never came up, right? Because when in fact even if it is neurodiverse talent or people with disabilities in the organization, for me it's just talent. Everybody is talent. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. It's talent. It's everyone's adding value. So putting boxes firstly is the first barrier that we have to break. I think that's the first thing. The second thing that I wanted to bring out is that there was great economic sense, right? Because if I have 5 people, so when I was discussing this internally, the first question was, are we doing it because as an organization, we're looking for some sort of brownie points? No, we're not looking at any sort of, of anything on that front. It was just genuinely from the point, the only thing we were looking at is how can we create an empathetic organization from a value standpoint? Yeah, that is very important to us. And I think from that journey, I can tell you what our biggest challenge, for example, was to, ensure that my own team, for example, neurotypicals are accepting of the changes we are bringing in, and they don't think that is imposed on them. Okay, just because the leadership is telling you to do something, I'm doing it. They should be doing it. They should be as much a partner in that journey than something that is coming in from a top-down standpoint that we are doing it because someone is telling us that we have to do it. I think that has been one part of the journey. I think training has helped us well there. I would just kind of come back on that. Today, we don't face any such challenges. The other thing was infrastructure. One of the reasons, why we are looking at physical disability next and neurodiversity first was the workplace that I sit out of did not have ramps and washrooms, that facilities that would encourage that. I don't want to create a setup where I can't cater. So we wanted to first ensure that we have the workspaces ready that allow for that to happen. That's happening now as we speak. So we are very certain that over the next 3 months, we'll have a workspace also that is friendly, so I can invite them to office and they can work just like anybody else at the workplace. So I think that's the other reason why we have taken that journey to be in pieces, and we are taking it one step at a time. But that's been my part. And for most of my team, which is neurodiverse, they require certain workplace. So we've kept it as comfortable as possible. And for that, technology is a very important and integral part of it, right? You are working. So meetings, for example, embracing Zoom or for example, embracing Google Meets is extremely important to ensure that the check-ins are happening and tech is ensuring that we are well connected. So that's where we are on our journey. Over to you, Abhishek.
So since I'm in this middle-aged zone, I forget my reading glasses most of the time, and I use voice most effectively. All my messages are voice. Abhishek, over to you.
I think I will address the challenge question first, and maybe as SMEs or others, economic sense which Gaurav talked would be always there. Apparently, we being on the services side, my talent and the team has to be either a customer facing or customer engaging, right? Very frankly, our customer did reject on the idea that the person will be becoming part of disabilities, and they had a concern. I think that will remain. But that, having said that, we discounted, quote unquote, the economic profits and etc. We said he's still part of the team. We will bear the cost and he will work. And that is
the same thing. We did the same.
And that is continuing. And now that has given us the confidence. I think slowly this challenge will go out, but we need to do our work. So that is the biggest challenge which I faced. I think again, I'm not looking this team as a charity or anything or economic profit. I said they bring a lot more attitude, approach, happiness, focus, which is very much lacking, right? They treat every challenges as an opportunity, which overall we need to understand, right? So I think we are definitely making a lot of progress and a lot of advantage for our purpose. So there's never a economic loss when you work with diverse people and you can include everybody. So that's from the challenge perspective. Technology is, I think, the greatest boon. Since I was part of school days, I've seen it. We had challenges in communication, but now it is improving. So without technology, I think this would not have happened. As Gaurav mentioned, it is helping us to create it is our responsibility to create a best ecosystem, whether they work from home, office, wherever. And I think we are working on that.
Perfect. So in a nutshell, both your journeys have created the lovely ecosystem, physical infrastructure, or for one of you, it's work in progress, leveraging other partners who add value to this journey, having the conviction to convince our customers. Lovely. So many other things to say. But Leenika is going to stop us since we are running short of time. So now we over to the heroes. So what we thought for the audience is we'll showcase a couple of employees who've been part of this beautiful journey and how they've added value to their organizations. So who would like, do we begin with Keshav? Namrata, who would like to go first? Keshav, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hello, my name is Keshav and I work at Rise as a marketing full-time employee. And I help with brainstorming and coming up with creative ideas of how we can represent the company in a very creative manner. So yeah, like this is a very short introduction from my side.
Gaurav, would you like to ask him some questions to talk about his journey?
Sure. So Keshav, I know you've had some very stellar ideas, and you've done some really interesting work on the marketing side. But maybe if you would like to talk to us about one of the interesting projects you worked on and just share your journey on that one project, maybe it'll be interesting for people to understand the kind of work you do in a little more detail.
Yes, sure. So one of the projects which we are working right now is trying to make our brand come out with a new flavor. So in the process, we are supposed to design. And one thing which I really enjoyed working with the team is how all of us brought in together. Everyone like made their own contribution on what they were good at. And I really enjoyed the entire process of everyone getting their little bit in, and overall it's a beautiful dish that's put up outside. And Sir himself responded to us in a very positive manner, and other leadership. So this project of actually trying to look at the brand with new eyes, I really enjoyed it a lot. Working with the team under the management, it was really fun, and still it's going on, and I look forward for how things will turn out.
So Keshav, sir would be Gaurav, right?
I don't
Yes.
call me Gaurav, I'm fine.
So Keshav, a question, important question. Did you have inhibitions when you joined? How do you think, I'm putting Gaurav in a spot. How did he help you? How did others help you? Some anecdotes on that would be useful.
Sure. So joining, yes, of course, we have our own set of assumptions to make of how things would be, how people would be, because it's not the easy story which we hear of everyone. So I was again skeptical in 100 and odd ways, like we can just come up. But I was very, very impressed with what Rise had to offer me. So it was like very genuinely, it was very, very welcoming from every step. Like I even remember each of the incidents where some of the employees or the leaders and the management helped me out personally, knowing because they were aware of what I had. And therefore, like, for example, if I fail at eye contact, these people knew that I am using it for thinking, maybe not just looking. So my mind is more focused. So various accommodations are made, and I really didn't face a lot of issues. Like, I think it couldn't be better.
Okay, I want an honest answer now. Were you frustrated
Okay.
at times?
I think, yeah. Sorry, are you saying something else?
Yeah, no. Were you frustrated at times?
I think the frustration is more from overthinking at my end than the actual situation. That's,
Lovely.
I think, every time I think I have the capacity to actually relook the situation. So I do not think actually I was really frustrated with anyone in the team. It has not happened. So yeah.
That speaks a lot for how you look at life, Keshav. Thanks a lot. I hope, I wish we could talk to you more, but then time constraints. So we'll move over to Namrata, if that's okay with you. But yes, please jump in if you have any more thoughts.
Sure.
Namrata? Namrata?
Yes, you can speak now.
Hello everyone, I'm Namrata and I'm working as an admin at Vcreatek, and I will be completing 1 year in the next month in this organization, and it's really nice to hear you all and to be part of this discussion.
Perfect. So, Abhishek, would you like to add a few words for Namrata?
Sure, I think. Can you hear me? Yeah. So team, Namrata,
No, we can't hear you.
can you hear me? We are in the same room, so just give us a few minutes. Can you go on mute? Yes. Okay. So team, as I said, Namrata is visually challenged, but she has been equally part of our work. I can just share that we had our apprehensions learning, which Gaurav said. So I started the training with myself. So I gave her some work on PPTs, questions on, she doesn't have a technical background, but she's an MCOM, right? So we worked on those, finance and accounting. Excel is her core strength. So I gave work her around that. And just since she's visually challenged, we do think PPTs, right? PowerPoints. I did ask her once, can you build PPTs? She said yes. And that's where my confidence again went from, if it was 10 times, it became 100 times, right? And since then, she has been working with me. She prepares all my content for many of the things, right?
Wow.
And
I
she's
really
part
love
of
this story.
she's part of all the operation and executive team. She is like handling everything. And I can proudly say that one of the steps, maybe again, as we scale it up, she's going to lead our so-called diversity and inclusion whole champion thing, as Gaurav mentioned, right? We are still building those processes around it. And I'm very happy to have her. I have never felt that she has any visual challenge or otherwise.
So, Namrata, I have a question for you. How the hell do you visualize it and create that magic? Because that is the reason I'm asking. Though I'm sighted, I'm very good with words, but I find it difficult to visualize things pictorially or in a smaller way. So, would love to hear how you went about this.
Yes, sure. Actually, yeah, we can't see, but like we can visualize or we can think about the things.
Exactly.
Like initially, like you mentioned about the school and all. So I think I was fortunate enough that I was a part of inclusive schooling, and that really helped me to build my mindset and other things. So I think like inclusive schooling really helps in like for if we really want to build a inclusive culture in our society. And I think communication and understanding the capabilities of differently abled person would be the icebreaker, like if we want the organization to be inclusive. Because I remember like during the initial days, like I used to go to Abhishek sir and like ask him like what should I do, because he was also taking his time to understand my capabilities, and he used to tell me like first you settle down and understand the things. So I think that time was really crucial to, because it helped me as well as my team to settle down together. And I think on the organization level, every organization should give that time to like every differently able person candidate to settle down, like not just for the candidate but for the team as well, because even my team also had some curiosity, like how they are going to work, like how, like what kind of task they can assign to me. So so I think that initial phase was really important. I think if everyone gets that kind of opportunity and time to settle down in the organization, it would be really grateful for everyone.
Beautifully structured. And the most important learning for me personally in this conversation, there is this cliched assumptions about what a visually impaired person can do. And that is so wrong, because each person have their own abilities and interests. Nobody else should decide as to what they can or can't do. Is a big part of this whole journey. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to share, Namrata? We have another minute to go, and I think there is a question, so maybe we'll have to move, but please do share if there is an
Yeah, I feel like together we can definitely bring out the change. It will not, like, change will not happen in one day, but one day it will definitely happen. So
it's already in progress, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there is a question from Ankita Anand, and Leenika, you want to answer this? I saw you saying you want to answer this.
Yeah, so I think the question that Ankita is asking is the biggest operational difficulty that MSMEs face is the access to working capital. Financial institutions are reluctant to provide any working capital loans without collateral. And a large number of SMEs have no fixed assets to offer as collateral. How can SMEs be sensitized to becoming inclusive and diverse despite the monetary pains they already are facing? So Ankita, a quick introduction. My name is Leenika. I manage the Diversity and Inclusion Charter at NASSCOM. I don't think these are two linked things. While I appreciate your viewpoint of saying that there is work that is required on funding and monetary aspects, but diversity and inclusion is not something which is outside of your business, Ankita. And that's the larger reasons why we got success stories of founders like Abhishek and Gaurav to be shared with you, and Anu as well. I think what we are very clearly saying is, if you understand the two aspects, diversity is about people with different backgrounds, people with different experiences, different abilities, people who are different. And the different people together bring in innovations and bring in something which is different, right? So as Keshav mentioned, these are the set of people who are excellent and phenomenal on creativity. So it is not a social cause. And these are the experiences that we wanted this team to share with you, Ankita. I am available. Sourav has my details. I will be very happy to chat with you separately. And what inclusion means is about cultural mind shifts. It is about your own people wanting to work with you because there is already so much of talent war that is happening, right? For people to continue to work for the respective organizations, I think that is where the whole inclusion, the whole cultural mind shifts come from. You know, as Namrata mentioned, any organization that you join, you need some time for people to understand it is not about Namrata. It is true even for me. After 26 years of working, if I have to join an organization, I really want the organization to understand me. So I think that is that. I will be very happy. So workplace ready for diverse people, I understand. And it is not very difficult, Ankita. I think neurodiversity for sure is not very different. Gender is anyways not very different. For people with different ability, like a visually impaired or speech and hearing impairment, there is that checklist, there is that audit, but it is not very different. And we are not saying that this is the journey that you have to take. I think what we are only telling you is what are the different aspects of diversity possible And in this work from home environment, you might just not have to change anything.
Exactly.
You just have to give employment and support allyship, support mentorship. And a lot of this diverse workforce would get hired largely because working from home. So Abhishek, I think, also wants to add to it. Over to you, Abhishek.
I mean, for everybody, I think building an organization, right, MSME or big, money is not the criteria for the success or the growth. It's the team. So as we all may have capital challenges or not, right? I think even with lots of dollars, company may not succeed, but with a good team, we can succeed. So for these, when we call about the diversity and inclusion, the whole idea is about the team. As Leenika mentioned, financial thing is different. Team and the team, what culture which we are building is different. So Ankita and everybody, financial constraint should not be part of or any restrictions on how you build the team. For me, I think and as Gaurav mentioned, I have mentioned, there's economic returns in terms of the attitude, culture, and etc. The positivity which this culture team is bringing for all of us, right? That will help you or us to fight through that situation. Personally, I can tell you, again, the challenging point for me, they understand the value because of the need. They understand the value of limited resources, which many of us misses out. And financial capital is only one of the resources which we think can give us a success, which I totally disagree, right? So from that perspective, I think if you can look up to, you will get a better team and better growth for your organization. And on the second one, making expenses and places, Gaurav mentioned he's also doing it. We are at a rental place. We also are learning. We have taken baby steps. We talked with the owner of the building, and they helped us to, like for visual impairment, again, the lift didn't have a sound. You didn't have the braille labels, right? They helped us. We communicated. It took 3 months to go through it, but then it happened. So the cost would be shared across. Don't worry on that. If it is your own, you would be again more than happy, as Leenika mentioned. Many of the people are working from home. Technology, video, Zoom is allowing everything. So these things will again come in place as we move ahead. That's all.
I'd like to add one point here. When we started in a very small office and we didn't have any such luxury, but people in the office geared up to support people. That itself is a big starting point. And then infrastructure can happen. Intent is the first step. And it was all just camaraderie beyond that. Gaurav, over to you.
No, can't agree more. I think the beauty of bringing in diversity and making diversity inclusion the focus of what we are doing is we get different thoughts, right? The way, my team, for example, Keshav will envisage something very different from how I look at it. And what that brings is the beauty of different thoughts, or looking at the entire spectrum of what can be done, right? And sometimes that could be the very difference, because if everyone's thinking the same way, then there's only one, then maybe there's a limitation. But if I have different viewpoints and I'm open to different viewpoints and I'm open to different ideas, then maybe there are more channels and there are more avenues for us to look at as an organization, in whatever capacity and whatever strategy we want to build. There are more thoughts around it. I think that in itself is worth, probably putting in to bringing in this change in your organization is more than recovered. So I think the first point I want to tell everybody is this is not economic gains are a given, right? Just I can tell you that from my personal experience, that is not a limiting factor. It is a mindset issue. You've got to ensure your team and you yourself are willing to walk this journey. Everything else will follow through. Just walk it with a good heart, and I think everything else will follow through. And that's my last closing comment on this. Thank you.
So we have 7 minutes past our scheduled time. So I'll leave it to Sourav and Leenika. Any more questions? Looks like there is one question again. All right, that's it. No question. Yeah, we'd love to stay in touch. I'm sure Gaurav and Abhishek would love that too, and with that. So any other question? Or with it? So Sourav has taken control.
Thank you very much, Anu, for this wonderful session. And I think I thoroughly enjoyed the discussion. So much to learn from all of you. And now I would like to request Leenika to make the closing remarks because she's leading the DNA charter, and I would request her to present NASSCOM's vision and mission with regards to this charter, which is very important as an organization that we have felt. And so over to you, Leenika, to make that final comments.
So thank you, Sourav. For us, I think the vision that we have is to include inclusion as the key differentiator of the tech industry in India. So with that vision, from a smaller medium enterprises perspective, very clearly, I think we are walking the talk. We are saying inclusion is a CEO agenda. And that is how we have Abhishek and Gaurav, who are the founders of the respective smaller medium enterprises, talking about inclusion, how has that impacted their their companies. The second, for us as an organization, we are very keen to assess where are we at an industry level. And we will soon be coming up with an assessment framework, which will be like a self-assessing tool, which you can assess your respective journeys, and linked to that would be awards and accolades, celebrating inclusion, and coming up with the D&I index and a best practices report. The third priority for us clearly is sharing practices. And this discussion that we are having today is one of that, where we want people to learn from each other. We actually did our inclusion outlook roundtables in about 10 cities, and we've come up with a document which basically talks about what are the best practices, what are challenges mainstreaming inclusion. I will give that document to Sourav in some time. It's under designing so that it can be shared with all of you. It basically just gets to say what is the inclusion outlook 2022-23 looking like. We are also building our community page. So if some of you have not seen the community page, it's public information. If you type NASSCOM community page, you should be able to see. Under that banner is diversity and inclusion. We are building content on that, all discussions, all conversations, all policy changes, and you could even write blogs. So I would sincerely urge both Abhishek and Gaurav to write a blog on the discussions, and Anu as well, to write a blog on the discussions that we had today. What are the learnings? And with that, we will append this video. Just sharing the video would not help. Let's just put a small blog. So that is how all the discussions that we are doing, we are putting it as a blog with the video so that there is more for people to learn from. Under the same community page banner, we've started things like women leading change stories. So if there are women who've taken a career break and joined our industry, we are amplifying those stories through our community page, through social media. Likewise, inclusion stories. So I will be very keen to get the inclusion stories of the two folks who joined us for the session today. Abhishek, Gaurav, I will share the framework with you. It'll be very good to get their stories, which we can share with the larger audience, amplify through social media. We've also done a report with IIM Ahmedabad on returnship, and that's the report we've again hosted on our community page. We want to work more and more with academia on different aspects of inclusion that the tech industry is following, largely because it is important for the future talent to know what does tech industry mean for diverse workforce. So that is why this report already has about 1,500 views. And this is largely future talent, future people who are looking at these reports to see what does this industry mean for the diverse workforce. So that's the third priority. And the fourth for us is clearly improving diversity in the workforce on all aspects. I am trying to create a SME playbook on different chapters. So what does it mean to start a journey on different diverse workforce like LGBT+, neurodiversity, people with disability, gender, even culture? You know, some of the organizations, maybe like a Microsoft or a Wipro, are doing a great work around the whole cultural change. So there is a lot to learn from. We will start with the whole overview, right? Because I think what SMEs like Abhishek is saying, I want to start the D&I journey. I'm wanting to consolidate and I want my colleague to take over this role, right? What does it mean? What does it mean to start a D&I journey? So we are wanting to create a handbook I've started to explore, I've started to talk to people. If there is any interest on contributing content, topics, anything, I'll be very happy to work with any of you. The idea is, as the charter is inclusion, how much inclusive can we get onto this charter, and how much can we walk the talk is the sole purpose of driving this from NASSCOM. Yeah.
Thanks, Leenika.
Yeah, so I think we are coming to the end of this program, and I would like to thank again everyone who joined us, particularly Namrata and Keshav, to share their inspirational story with all of us, And I believe that the audience can take a lot from this discussion, and they can certainly think a way how they can engage with the, people with a different ability within their organization, and they can start their journey in their organization going forward. So, to all the audience, we will also post the recording of this video in our YouTube channel, and it will be there for your references. Also, we would like you to circulate it internally to build a larger awareness and sensitize your own colleagues, your teammates, and everyone in your organization. So thank you again, and we wish you a lovely weekend and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Look forward. Thank you.